open meeting, we're going to be workshopping Drupal 101 videos. So there's been a call from like people in the metadata interest group and people in the dig for more introduction to Drupal concepts. And it felt like those were things that really fit to do within our current documentation. Like we already have a real big spread there between really technical documentation that it takes a lot of like foreknowledge to understand, and walkthroughs, which while they're billed as Islandora, they're basically Drupal. They're just teaching Drupal concepts. So what I've done is I started a series of short screen capture videos where I walk through and try to explain some basic Drupal concepts like you've never seen Drupal before. So I have 10 right now, and I have about 6 more on the docket. And they kind of run through these basic Drupal concepts in a way that kind of builds on each other a little bit. Hopefully doesn't repeat itself too much. And in the way that once, hopefully, my plan is to upload them to YouTube, can be kind of interconnected, because these concepts really aren't straightforward. I wasn't able to find a good linear path through these things. Maybe I could if I tried. But so the idea was that in YouTube, we'd use their little ability to add links to other YouTube videos. And so throughout, as we mentioned, you know, for more on views, see the video on views, a little block could pop up and you could take that and go navigate that way to see more about views. So that's the plan. The plan for today is hopefully to get some feedback on this. I know you're all here, you all probably have some level of Drupal knowledge. Anything that you want to contribute is completely welcome. So I've pasted a link to the Drupal 101 videos spreadsheet. There's a few tabs on it. The first tab is the link, shows a link to the draft videos if you want to take a look at them yourself, but I'll be playing them like through a screen share. The second tab are a list of what are the videos that have been made so far and what are their main kind of hit-on talking points. So I've marked off 3 spreadsheet columns over on the right-hand side, and those are for your comments. Anything you want to type in there is completely welcome. And there's also a third tab for general feedback. Again, just anything you want to add about the voice. Am I going too fast or too slow? Should the tone be different? Do you have like ideas about how these things can be put together better? That would be really appreciated. All right. So with that, let me figure out how to get my QuickTime running. Maybe let's play it from online. I admit I glossed over how exactly I would be sharing these, but all right. Screen.
Oh, Rosie, there's usually a little checkbox that you have to click to make sure you share the sound too.
Thank you. Yes. And I clicked optimize for video clip. I don't know what that does, but let's hope that works. All right. So this is video 1, nodes, content types, and fields.
This is a zero context introduction to content, nodes, and fields. When you're building a Drupal website, we say the stuff you're adding is content. Most often, these are seen as pages on your site. In Drupal, we call these nodes. Each node has its own URL, so you know what page you're on. If you're logged in and on a node, you can probably see the Edit tab. Here you can edit the components of this node, the title, body, image file, and the tags. These are the fields that make up this content type. Each field here has a different type. With body, you can enter text. In image, you can upload a file. And in tags, you can start typing and it autocompletes from a taxonomy. Before you save, you have to choose whether to publish, make available to the world, or to save your node as an unpublished draft. Only certain users can see drafts. When you want to create new content, you have to start by choosing a content type. This sets out what fields will be available and cannot be changed after the fact. In this case, we have 3 content types. Article and basic page are part of the standard Drupal install, and repository item comes from Islandora. If you can manage content, then you can see a list of all the nodes at Manage Content. Here you can also see who made it, when it was created and updated, and when it was published. To recap, if you're making content, you're probably making nodes, which have fields and belong to content types.
All right, short and sweet. What did you think? Feel free to use voice or whatever you want. Annie, I see a thumbs up. Thank you.
Rosie, I think your voice and your speed are spot on. It sounds in a pleasant tone. You're not speaking too fast. You're not using language that would be too advanced. And if you are, you're explaining exactly what that means in the environment. I liked the pace. I thought the shortness of the video was nice. So I think that's all good.
Thanks. Thank you. And Don Richards, I see your thumbs up in the chat. Thank you for that. All right, because I was just like, we were trying to define in a glossary what a node is, and I just found that extremely hard because there's so much about like it's just the basic Drupal element. All right, feel free to like MST3K this if you just want to like yell at stuff.
Pink and orange.
I don't have your hair ties. I need hair ties. Oh wait, they're right here.
Wait, I want to see who that is.
Hey, Seth.
All right, let's try video number 2.
This is a zero context introduction to users, roles, and permissions. If you're working on a Drupal site, you will need to log in. In Drupalese, you need a user. Users have usernames and passwords, which you use to log in at mydrupalsite/user. But users also have roles, like editor, or translator, or administrator. These roles define what permissions the user has. A basic user might only have the permission to add or edit content, while an administrator can change any configuration in the entire site. Say you're an administrator. To configure who is allowed in your site, you can see the list of users at the People tab on the Management menu. It's a good idea to keep this up to date and remove users belonging to people who no longer need access. The Permission tab is where you can see what permissions are assigned to which role. Permissions are defined by modules and can be very numerous. We can set up, for example, who can view unpublished content. You'll notice that the administrator has all the checkboxes grayed out and checked. This is because Drupal reserves that one role to be the admin role, which always has permission to do everything. By default in Drupal, anyone can sign up for an account. One thing you might want to do is to change this. Under Manage Configuration People Account Settings, I always change who can register accounts to administrators only. Otherwise, the site tends to get spammed with robots trying to create users. Another thing you might want to do is change the username of the first user from admin to something else. Again, this is to foil automated login attempts. For more, see Getting Started with Drupal Administration on drupal.org. To recap, users have roles, and roles bestow permissions, and managing users is an important part of running a Drupal website.
All right. Well, thoughts? Did I jump around too much there? I did mention these are draft videos, right? I recorded the sound separately from the screen capture, and so sometimes I get a little bit out of sync trying to keep up with the voice.
I really like the description of the default admin role and then everything compared to that. I wonder, at the beginning, you mentioned keeping the users updated, and it might be a simple step, but just in case, it could be something to add is how to remove a user in the case that you're updating that page.
That's awesome. Yes, thank you.
Rosie, I
Yeah,
would kind of bust this up a little bit more. I think maybe going into roles, like what type of roles in a separate video, and then like what it seemed like here you brought up a lot of good points of what to do first with roles, and then maybe go into the different types of roles in other videos. But
All right.
overall, pretty good.
So would that be like flesh out more the creation of like a content editor role?
Yeah, so you give an example when you talk about something, maybe, I don't know.
Cool, thanks.
Because if you try to add more, then the video just gets longer. So it might just be better to split it.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that for a few of these too. Like I've got ideas for like a blocks 2 video and modules 2 and all that stuff. Do you
Rosie?
prefer? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I have
please.
another. I was going to say, I really appreciate that you mentioned like changing the name of your at the first user, like some of those kind of gotchas that people aren't always aware they should do. The other thing I was thinking though, as I was watching it, is like, I think some of the instructions would be different if you're pulling in users through some kind of single sign-on. And I wonder if you want to just at least say like the ways you handle this will be different if you're using. I don't know if that's worth it or if that overcomplicates it.
No, that's a great idea because that's a big thing. Like Drupal has the LDAP module, which you can use in institutional settings, and a lot of us are in institutions. So that's yeah.
Yeah, that was I loved it. I think it's great the way you're pitching it at a certain level. But as somebody who's been involved in deeply in building these roles, with I think it's probably a good idea to somehow nod very briefly to the fact that there are ways within Drupal, multiple ways within Drupal to create, really complex roles, and that might be the subject of a future or multiple future videos, but just to sort of nod to that, like, there's a lot of flexibility on this issue.
Thanks, Katie. Do you have an example for like that kind of complex roles? Because I'm not sure that we've done too much of that.
I mean, I just think about like the fact that we created 4 different roles. The administrator role, who we ended up calling the systems admin, a global admin, a collections admin, and an end user. And we may end up creating more roles as time goes on. And the 2 in the middle, the global admin and the collections admin, they're really nuanced. Their access to the system is very nuanced. And so, I mean, I think that's something that libraries is going to, that people are going to want to know that we can do, we can do that. We can nuance the roles. Can I share? Are you asking me, Rebel? Can I share the roles and the exact permissions given? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, they sound similar to ones that I need.
Okay, so the person we call the systems admin is equivalent to what's called the administrator in the video that Rosie showed, the grayed out column, right? And then the global admin is somebody who can create collections admins, who can create other global admins, who can do things like create taxonomies. So, not just add to the taxonomies list, but create new taxonomies. The global admin has a level of control over what the collections admins can and can't do. Collections admins are really like, the way to think of them in a library setting is curators. So if you're a curator over a particular collection within our our digital collection. So the maps and atlases, that's a good example. Maps and atlases is the collections administrator or curator is somebody who's a librarian, but not really that familiar with Drupal. And so they'll be able to add collections, for instance, add things to their collection. And once the global administrator creates a collection for them, they can add materials to those collections. But they couldn't go in and create, they have no roles creation capacity. They have to ask the global admin or the system admin, but more likely the global admin to do that. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, the end user is just as the word describes, the public, people who come and access collections and can do things like, download. They can download videos, download items. They can view the items, view videos in the browser. They can do the kinds of things you normally expect an end user of digital collections to do.
That's awesome. I like that. It's probably a separate video for all that, like managing complex roles.
Kudos to Bethany Seeger. She's the one who created this. So
yeah,
better see her in the future.
Awesome. She's very, she's created a lot of stuff that's been talking about today. That's great. All right, jump into video 3 here. This one's about aliases.
This video will introduce aliases and views, and assumes you have watched nodes, fields, and content types. Suppose you're looking at a Drupal site and want to know what you're looking at. Earlier we made the link between nodes and pages on your site, but we glossed over a few things. So every node shows up at node/nid, where nid is the ID of the node. That's the easy one. But sometimes it doesn't look like that. In that case, the URL you see might be an alias. That means a secondary URL that masks the original or canonical URL. Standard behavior of aliases is that both the canonical and the alias display the node and its content. So if you're on an aliased node page and need the node ID, try the Edit tab. That usually reveals the canonical link. On the Edit tab is also where it's possible to edit the alias. Second, other things aside from nodes have pages. Media, taxonomy terms, and users are entities that all have their own pages, but they're much less likely to be part of the intended navigation of your site. More importantly, pages on your site can be created using the Drupal module views. A view is a list of stuff, usually a list of content, and you can display it at any URL you choose. For more on views, see the video on views. Finally, pages can be defined in code. These might not be possible to edit from the UI. It's possible to display other content on pages, and this is often done using blocks. These are reusable, portable pieces of content that can be displayed anywhere. For more on blocks, see the video on blocks. To recap, lots of things can make pages on your site, including nodes, taxonomy terms, users, media, views, and code. So if you're looking at a page and you're not sure what it is, check the URL. If that doesn't make it clear, check the Edit tab. And if that fails, see if there's a contextual menu that lets you edit view.
All right. Don't be afraid to tear it apart. I feel like that one was a little bit sketchy. I really wanted to introduce the ways of trying to figure out like what it is that you're looking at on your site. And hopefully that kind of came through.
Yeah, my comment was just, you made a comment that you can make it any URL. It might be good advice to predetermine your pattern. So like you want, instead of node and then node ID, it used to be what, the collection name / and then the PID. If you have some type of pattern you'd like to maintain, for the life of me can't remember if you can add it to like config to automatically fill, like path auto. automatically fill in that space with like the beginning of a API, but or like a not an API, but act like an API. So it would have that beginning like collections / or whatever.
So like using path auto in general or more than that?
Oh, I'm just saying, generally speaking, I mean, you don't necessarily need path auto to do any of that. It's just if you are gonna, there might be reserved names already in place. So if somebody created an alias for a collection name, or you have 3 books on a specific topic, so that the likelihood that they might actually have the same name or the alias is pretty close. It's going to get really frustrating when you try to save it and it kicks it back because the alias is already taken. So some type of determining some type of pattern that's going to work best for you, whether it be an ID or a name or I don't know, whatever pattern. But I think a warning in there just to say, hey, you might have existing ones, so it's best to figure out a pattern in advance that you want to maintain. And this can be like a whole topic by itself, I'm sure, but yeah, so.
True, thanks, yeah.
A good job though.
I think it would be good to bring in some use case examples as to why you would want to use an alias.
Is pretty URLs sufficient?
I think that can be one, but I was thinking more like, I don't know, Perl. We're gonna try to keep Perl and have those tied to the record. And I'm thinking the alias URL is probably a good spot for us to stick that at. So thinking something like that.
Oh my God, awesome. Yeah, I never thought about Perl. That's great.
There's also the people that want to retain their previous URLs. So let's say they're migrating from 7 to 8. They can give it the alias of collections / and then that PID. So if you're doing a migration, you can automatically add that alias in, and then when you switch from 7 to 8, and somebody still has a link back to a previous 7 item, you can still get to it. Automatically gets back to that exact same item. If that makes sense.
Can you? Yes, but how did you set that up again? You said you grabbed what piece?
If you're setting up a migration, part of that, setting up that CSV would be to also grab the PID, and you know that the URL is always going to be collections / and then that PID or whatever your university has. Okay. So you can have it automatic, that migrations already go ahead and set that alias for you by whatever string you pass it. So just pass it a concatenation of the URL plus the PID, and just drop that into your alias, and that would maintain your URLs between your deployment. So 7 to 8 would be seamless, and any links that would have been linking back to a previous piece of content is still linking to that same piece of content once you roll out into 8. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
All right.
I think what's great about these videos is that, and the conversation around them is that you're focusing on the basic concepts, right? But people who know even just a little bit about Drupal can see what the next step is in them. Do you know what I mean? Like, or what the multiple next steps. So one next step from the last one that you just gave was resolving URLs into one another. Like if you have a pre-existing system, how you're going to create link. I can't remember. We had a pre-existing system in DSpace, and we've set up Don will know the exact term for this, but it's basically a little database that resolves anytime somebody in the world clicks on a DSpace URL for our system, it gets automatically shunted over to the correct Islandora URL. And I just can't remember what the name of that service is, but we created one of those, and that's sort of like a nice lead into your video. Could be a nice lead into to a discussion about that. You know, at the end of the video, do you want to learn more about link resolvers or whatever?
Yeah. Anything else about aliases / pages?
I have one thought, but I was out for a couple of minutes, so somebody might have covered it already. Have we talked about the fact that canonical URL kind of means the opposite of what you were saying in the video? Like if you have an alias defined on /node/32, so that when you go to it, it goes to a node with a title, then the metadata that Drupal puts out that tells Google, this is the canonical URL, like this is the address where this page belongs, and the node is kind of the internal URL, is probably the terminology I might use.
Oh, okay, good. I was about to ask that. Thank you. No, I just made up canonical, and if that's if it collides with something that's actually being used by like search engines and stuff, then yeah, I'll revise that to call it internal URL. Makes more sense too.
If this is going back to the views thing, if you wanted to tie it into another meaningful like example of how to use views, you could take that URL alias and add that to the view, like underneath the main image or something, to show how you're adding content and then pulling it onto a page.
So show the way that a view works by putting stuff at /node.
Maybe. I was thinking it's like, because you're going into this video with like how to create the path, the alias path. And now how, on the next video, you could be showing how to take that content and pull it into the UI so that the user can now see it. That's all I'm talking. So it doesn't necessarily need to be the URL, but I'm just saying, create the content in one video, and then the next video you're showing how to manipulate the views to show that content that they just created, to bring it to the display. There we go.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. All right, next up is managing content types. Previously, we discussed how nodes have fields which are defined by their content type. In this video, we'll discuss managing content types by adding a field to basic page. Basic page is a content type that comes with nearly every installation of Drupal. It's designed, according to this description, for static content, such as an About Us page. Let's say we want to add a geolocation field to this content type, so we can plot our basic pages on a map. This assumes we have the geolocation module enabled. If you're running Islandora, you probably have it because it's required by controlled access terms. This is done where we manage content types under Manage Structure, Content Types. We want the basic page content type and just click Manage Fields. Right now, we only have one field on this content type, Body. So from here, we'll click the Add Field button in the top left. Now we get to choose between making a new field or reusing an existing field. Reusing fields could work if you have several different content types that you want to view together on a map, but we'll choose New Field. Here I select the type Geolocation under General and give it a label. First, we get to consider our storage settings. Be careful, often it's not possible to change these settings once they've been set, so think about these choices. In our case, I'm pretty sure this is a single valued field, so I'll keep the settings how they are. On the next page, we get to see how this field appears on my content type. If I had used an existing field, I would still get to fill out this page with help text and the label, whether it's required and a default value for this field on this specific content type. I click Save, then navigate to edit a basic page. And there on the bottom of my form is my new field. I can enter a latitude and longitude. When I save this, it shows up on the bottom of the node as latitude and longitude. Well, that's okay, but it's not very exciting. Don't worry. This field is provided, like many fields, by a custom module, and that module defines multiple field formatters and form widgets for this content type. First, let's talk about field formatters. Because viewing a lat and long is not very interesting, I want to see this field as a map. If I go back to Manage Content and use the drop-down beside Manage Fields and select Manage Display, I see a list of all the fields and things that will show up on my nodes page. This includes body, something called links, and our location field. I can even rearrange them, or set them to disabled so they don't show up. But under my links location field, the format is currently set to lat long, but we can change it to geolocation formatter map. Click Save and refresh your node. Voila! The field formatter knows how to set up a map. A little gotcha here. This won't work if you don't have any map providers available. If that's the case, go to Extend and enable one or more of the geolocation map provider modules. Here I'm using Leaflet. Finally, let's look at what form widgets are available. Under the Manage Form display for my content type, I see all the fields, plus the stuff that appears in the sidebar. When I find my field, I see that it's set to the lat long widget, which I can change to the geocoding and map. When I save this and edit the node, I see the widget, the thing that I interact with, is a map where I can move the map and click to select a location. Now, setting up a view to see multiple basic pages together on a map will be a separate video. To recap, there are many field types, of which geolocation is one, that are provided by contrib modules. They come with field formatters, which control how the field is displayed, and widgets, which determine how the field appears on a form. Adding and editing fields, their formatters, and widgets is a lot of the work of managing content types.
All right.
I really liked that one.
Thanks. It wasn't too fast into like, now let's do widgets, now let's do formatters.
You know, it is, you're right, what you said originally, which is I know what a widget is, and I know I have some background in Drupal, so, and yet I'm sort of, I don't know, what do other people think?
I thought it was great. It was exciting to see the kind of possibilities of making use of metadata like that. As someone who is still in 7, but will be transitioning, migrating to 8, starting in like June, July. It did go a little fast. Like I know Drupal, a lot of this looks familiar, even though it's a different look. So I did understand it. I think maybe if someone's coming in who is brand new to all of it, it may be a little fast, but that's the beauty of a video too, right? Is that you can just pause it, go do the piece you understand, come back and watch. So I don't know that it's a problem.
Yeah, I agree. You can always go back. Yeah. Are you, Rosie, are you planning on workshopping these at the Island Oricon maybe?
No, I don't want to work on them forever. I was hoping to like get the feedback from this right now, run through again, and then like maybe hopefully present them by what, in a couple weeks.
And when they appear on YouTube, are they going on like an Islandora YouTube channel?
I hope so. Like we'll make
Okay.
a playlist there or something.
Okay. And will there be like an introduction to the collection of videos, or will they be, how will you contextualize them?
Oh, that's a great idea. I don't know. Any suggestions?
I'll be
Well, I would-
presenting. It might belong on the community wiki, which I'll be talking about later today. I'll just throw that out there. I'm not completely sure because this delves into more developer resources, and some distinction between where things live and Islandora's wikis is important, but sort of linking to these videos and showing how they're connected, I could see that as something that makes its way to this wiki I'll be talking about later today.
Yeah, I think some sort of description of how these are, and correct me if I'm wrong, but these are like a step up from the videos that are already there, which I've used, like the introduction to views, which is great. Like I learned a lot about views just from those little introductory videos. Some way of situating or enmeshing them in the current range of information sources.
Yeah, I think I'm planning to link to them or use them heavily in the documentation where we end up like needing to talk about Drupal things.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. That's a great way to do it, to sort of to see the documentation. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was actually really surprised at how easy it was to set up that geolocation thing. Like once I figured out that you had to install a provider, but the providers are already like there are submodules that come with the geolocation module. So they were already there. You just had to click enable. It was super, super slick. I was afraid I was gonna have to like load up JavaScript libraries into some perfect location and do something. No, it was all there.
That's awesome.
And that leaflet module is really cool, although it doesn't have the like click to zoom. I know that some like Google Maps, when you scroll over them, they don't capture the scroll. They just let you scroll past them, or you can click to interact. And with the leaflet module, when you're trying to scroll down, you suddenly start scrolling into or out of the zoom in the map. It's not quite as easy to use. All right. View modes. This video discusses display modes, sometimes called view modes, even though they have nothing to do with views. It might be worth watching managing content types first. When we look at a list of nodes, such as the front page view or search results, we expect to see a smaller version of the full view that we see on the node's page itself. These different ways of seeing a node are called view modes. If you go into the Manage Display for article, you can see tabs across the top showing that you're on default and that there are a number of other view modes available. When we click one, say teaser, we can edit this display mode to include what fields show up and how they're formatted for this particular display mode. What we do here won't affect the default or any other view mode. In this case, there's a small difference between default and teaser for article, and that's that teaser shows the body field as summary or trimmed. This is how the teaser view mode works. It's configured here to show less than the full node content. If you want to configure a view mode that you know exists, but you don't see it in the list, go back to the Default tab and at the bottom, expand Custom Display Settings. Select the display mode you'd like to work with and click Save. Then it will show up in the top bar and you can configure it to your liking. To see this in action, our Dinosaur Iptum article is quite long, but on the front page view, more on views later, it displays as much smaller. Islandora works with view modes in a special way that I'll mention here. We have different view modes for different media viewers, and switch between them using contexts. More on that later. You can control what view modes exist at Structure, Display Modes. There are two types of display modes, view modes, which we've been talking about, and form modes, which are the equivalent for entity forms, and they're much less frequently used. Here you can add or delete or edit the names of available view modes. They're available for nodes as well as other content entities. To summarize, view modes or display modes let us show content in different ways for different purposes, and they're managed per content type and can be configured individually or fall under the default config. All right. I hope I use consistent terminology there. I know that view modes and display modes are kind of like with content and nodes. Sometimes they're synonymous and sometimes they're used hierarchically where one is over the other.
There's always that. Isabella, that's very cool. Was that about something in the video?
It was about the map. The leaf.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Yeah, that was really neat. All right, so kind of, sorry? I thought I heard somebody talking. Okay, I hope that one made some sense. I covered view modes and like the hidden view modes pretty darn quickly. Would it have been worth making a new view mode or something like that?
I think if you wanted to get really fancy into like, here's how to theme something, like the way we, for example, made a view mode for citation, that might be a great advanced topic, especially to continue on with like, here's how to make a theme template to show a very specific type of thing. That's pretty far down the road from the level that we're talking about right now.
Yeah. I think creating new view modes is probably more advanced than these videos, which are probably more about like switching view modes or understanding where they're used.
Mostly like, why am I arranging fields and it's not changing when I view the node?
Yeah. At some point, I want to have a video. I guess it's kind of like not really about anything, in the same way that my aliases one was less about aliases than like trying to figure out where you are, about using the inspector tools to look at your page in code and see, oh, this is a view. Oh, here we're using this, particular view block machine name 1, or here we're using display mode OpenSeaDragon. Like that stuff can be so useful.
You could make a Drupal escape room game. It's like, why is my homepage?
Yeah, I can tell you that as somebody who worked really closely with developers and software engineers throughout a long period of developing our site, but I'm in no way a Drupal expert. That would have been really helpful to me, I think, to have a video like that, to sort of just to be able to understand some of the things that they were saying in real time.
Cool. All right, next module is menus. Maybe. I hear no sound. Does anyone hear sound?
I do not hear any sound.
Oh, darn it. All right. Well, skip that one. Here, I can. One second.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
How does the viewer know what the title of these videos are? So you said this one's about menus, and then you started playing it, but I didn't see anything that said like menus or this, like how do they know what it's about?
It's the title at the top of on the tab, 06-menus. Sorry, I shared it through Dropbox because that was super easy, and Dropbox isn't showing me like when it shows me the video player.
Okay, so there's some part on the screen that I'm not seeing. Okay, got it.
Okay. This was about menus. Okay.
This is a zero-context introduction to Drupal menus. Drupal menus are lists of links that are used to navigate your site. Chances are you have a main menu across the top of your site, and you've probably logged in and seen this administration management menu along the top of the screen. These are all menus, and what goes into them is configurable. You're unlikely to want to edit the admin menu of your site, because those links help you get to all the available configuration pages. What's more likely is that you'll want to edit your main site menu. The official way to do this is through the admin menu at Manage Structure Menus. But you can also zip to editing this menu using the contextual links that appear when you hover over a menu. What's apparent from this contextual menu is that this is not only a menu, but it's also a block. We'll discuss more on that in a sec. Here we can rearrange, delete, or add menu items. You can nest menu items by dragging them to the right underneath another menu link, and you can add new links to content or anything else on your site. Menus can be placed around your site by manipulating them as blocks. Each menu has a block and can go in any of your theme's regions. This is usually done under Manage Structure Blocks. Menus have another use. Really, this is the routing system that underpins Drupal, in that they dictate what tabs appear. For instance, on the Manage Content page, this Media tab, it shows a list of media with filters, which is powered by a view, and it's in that view configuration, here on the middle column under Page Settings, that this Menu tab is defined. Combined with the hierarchical path structure defined above, this is how the view provides access to media from the Manage Content page. To recap, menus are the main way Drupal provides navigation through your site. For more, see Views and Blocks.
All right, sorry, the sound. I see now why the sound and the video weren't synced there. I kind of forgot to redo some of it. But yeah, menus. Nerds, did I get the part right at the end about the routing stuff? I hope that I did. Anyway, I think I'm gonna change that one to show that when you're editing a node, you can place a menu link and talk a bit about like menu weights and stuff like that. But as I said, these videos are drafts. All right, number 7 are blocks.
This is a low-context introduction to blocks and regions. We briefly discussed blocks in the menu video. In this one, we'll see how blocks make up everything we see on the site and add a new block. In a Drupal site, everything you see, from the branding header to the content to the footer, are all placed in their locations using blocks. Blocks are managed at Manage Structure Block Layout. Here we can see all the blocks on our site and where they're placed. For example, the main menu block is placed under the primary menu region. To see how all the regions work together, we can click on Demonstrate Block Regions. Each theme divides the screen into areas called regions, such as a header bar, dedicated menu areas, a main content region, and a footer. What regions are available depends on your theme. This is why if I change my theme, I'll need to recreate all my block layouts. I won't go too much into themes here, but your site can have multiple themes enabled. The one that gets used is the theme that is set as default. You might also have a different theme for the administration section of your site, as you do for the public-facing side. Let's say we want to place a link to Islandora's Twitter in the footer. First, I'll scroll down to the footer section, choose Footer Top, and click Place Block. I can here make a new block or choose an existing block. If I scroll down, I see a list of all the blocks that Drupal knows about. Blocks come from different sources. They can be core blocks provided by Drupal. The facets are blocks provided by the Solar API module. Blocks can come from views, which is a very powerful source of block content. And there is a block for each menu. And blocks can also be custom, like the one that we're about to create. When we create a block, we have to give it a description. This is how it appears in the list of blocks. Then we can add text to the body. The WYSIWYG editor here lets me add links, so I'll link to our Twitter and click Save. Now I've created a block, but I'm still in the process of placing it. I'm offered a chance to change the title of the block as it displays to the public, or to not display the title at all. Under Visibility, we have the ability to customize where and when this block displays, using a number of powerful conditions. Many of these conditions near the top were provided by Islandora, but some core Drupal conditions are pages, so it can show up on specific pages or groups of pages, roles, so you can specify which users should see this block, and content type, which shows this block only on certain content types. Once I'm happy with the block visibility settings, I can choose a region to display it in. It looks like it forgot that we clicked footer, and then save the block. Now, not only do I see it in my footer region, if I scroll up to the top and switch to the Custom Block Library tab, it's listed there, where I can edit it again if I need to. But now that my custom block exists and is placed, we should see it on our front end site in the footer, and sure enough, there it is. To recap, blocks are reusable chunks of content that can be placed in regions of your site. Views, menus, and custom blocks are some of the blocks you'll be working with, and blocks can be made to be only visible under certain conditions.
I feel like going, ta-da! So that was, I think, a pretty thorough introduction of blocks. I don't know what else could be said about blocks without incorporating a whole lot of other stuff. Like, it was tempting for me to make one placing a block only on certain pages. So if I had like 3 other pages that fell under the About Us section of our website, like governance and history and donors or something like that, having like your little section menu show up as a menu block placed only on regions that start with /about, and then making sure that all my pages have aliases that start with /about. But that's like tying together a whole bunch of things. Might be kind of useful though.
Yeah, we have a use case where we have a block that shows up on particular nodes. Like we have, it's basically sort of a content warning kind of thing. And so for particular images, it shows up as a block. And so how to do that by URL would be a really nice extension. I mean, it might be sort of like advanced uses of blocks or something rather than part of this video per se, but
Yeah.
That's definitely something that I can imagine use cases for.
Thanks. Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, I'd agree. It would be another video, and I think I got the basic idea that you're describing when you said you can put blocks on some pages and not others. You do say that.
Seeing how to do it would be nice. I mean, not in this like basic video, which is really helpful as it stands, but I think also that would be a great extension second video.
Do you mind if I use that content warning block idea?
That's fine.
Thanks. Any other thoughts or feelings or general feedback too?
Did you mention in the video that every theme has its own set of blocks? Just as another, like, this might take you by surprise if you're wondering why your block isn't showing up.
Themes have different regions, right?
They do, and I don't think they correspond to each other with the same name between.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at by showing the theme regions for Olivero and saying several times, like, if you change themes, you have to replace your blocks because they have different regions.
Yeah, that's like a trouble. I'm sort of thinking in terms of like someone trying to troubleshoot a Drupal site.
Oh yeah.
What are the common gotchas?
Yeah. Switching themes is such a scary thing since so much of the block stuff comes there. Oh, one thing that I didn't mention at all in this is layout builder, and I'm not sure how that like canonically affects blocks, if I should even allude to it or anything like that.
What is layout builder?
I understand it to be a way of doing block placements on your site that is independent of the theme.
And is it a module? Is it something within Drupal? Is it?
I don't know if it's within
It's-
core Drupal.
It is. It's in Drupal core.
But not a lot of sites use it that I'm aware, or a lot of sites don't use it, I think.
It's pretty popular on the commercial side of web development, like agency sites who have content creators who want more control over individual pages. So they might want to put like a gallery here or a call to action here. Layout Builder is quite popular there, where it's less popular for things like libraries where you have tens of thousands of pieces of content that more or less all are presented the same.
Mhm. So I hope I just didn't state anything factually incorrect when talking about how like when you see the stuff on your site, it's because they're blocks and there's block placements. I wasn't sure how to kind of allude that way without messing up. All right, up next are media. Introduction to media in Drupal. If you've made content on your site, you might recall that Drupal lets you upload files while creating content. For example, the article content type contains an image field, which shows up on the form as an upload button. But what if you want to reuse the same file on multiple nodes? You'd have to upload the same file multiple times, storing multiple copies. This is why Drupal lets you create a media library of reusable files. The media library can be found at Manage Content under the Media tab. Here shows the list of media. Each of these represents one file. There are multiple types of media, which are like media's versions of content types. You can also see the Drupal user who authored the media and, like with nodes, whether the media is published or unpublished. Click the title and you land on the media's page, where you can usually view or play or download the file and see what other information we have stored about it. In this case, that's MIME type and the file size in bytes. To create a new media, I must first choose which media type. This determines what file types are allowed and what other fields are available. I can upload the file here and fill out other fields if I wish. These two, original name and caption track, come from Islandora configuration. Now I've created a media. It also creates an entry in Drupal's file catalog. Files here are all the managed files that Drupal knows about, whether or not they're in a media. On the far right column, we see how many usages the file has. If this number drops to 0, the file is liable to be garbage collected, that is, deleted. Luckily, having a file in a media counts as a usage. How are media used? By adding a media reference field to a content type. I've already done this for basic page, so I'll add some media to the About Us page. This is the media widget. I can either create new media or autocomplete to reuse existing media. There's a link to open the media library in a separate tab to help jog my memory for autocomplete. I'll add a couple different media, save that, and go back to the node to see the new media. On the refreshed About Us page, everything below the map is these media, but they're showing the full media as a rendered entity. I think I want to see a more streamlined view. Luckily, like content types, media also have view modes, so I'll tell basic page to render its media using a different one. Under Structure, Content Types, Basic Page, Manage Display, we'll scroll down to our new field, which is Rendering with View Mode Default, and change it to use View Mode Source, which is a view mode set up by Islandora to show only the file itself. Scroll to the bottom and click Save, then reload the node, and our media display as the source file alone. So far, we've covered the Drupal way of using media. Islandora uses media differently. In Drupal, the node has a field that points to media. In Islandora, the media has a field that points to a node. For more on media in Islandora, check out the media page of Islandora's documentation. To recap, media are wrappers around files that let them be reused across a Drupal site. Media are traditionally added to content via entity reference fields. And media, like nodes, come in different flavors, which we call media types.
Like, I guess the only bit I would say is if other than it's good, it was great. Don't if there's a way to emphasize a little more on that this is for basic pages or boutiques or whatnot, instead of so that it's separate from an island or object, 'cause the way you add media to that is a bit different. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Like I was calling this the core Drupal way and trying to emphasize this is how like using media in Drupal versus Islandora. Maybe like at the beginning, I could also say that Islandora does things a different way and then go into it later.
Yeah, I would say that closest thing to criticism I have.
I would agree. You said it very clearly at the end, but I think it would be really helpful to say it very clearly at the beginning as well, that Islandora does it differently. This is how Drupal does it. They are not the same. Because
Yeah.
that was very clear at the end, but I could see someone getting a little bit confused in the middle if they were trying to apply the explanation that you have here to something that they had seen about how you are making the media show up for a repository item in Islandora, which is
Yeah.
as you say, not the same, but I see how it could be confusing.
Interestingly, like some of the nodes that I selected as my media that I selected were Islandora media. So like to tie them together, this could be an exhibit of Islandora media, which I add like 5 media and then theme into having a nice slideshow or something. That's a way that like you could interact with your Islandora content using Drupal.
And I think that that's a use case that people would potentially be super interested in. So I think that would be an interesting way to set that up, because I could easily see that being something that we would even potentially consider exploring at some point in the future. So yeah.
Another quick thing could show like the different types of media, like a file and an image is one thing, but media also has pretty esoteric ones like embedded tweet, which to show like, here's how, if you're writing a news article and you want to show someone's tweet, this is another way that the media system can work.
Cool. I'd forgotten about that one. Is that part of core or a separate module?
I forget if tweet is part of core. There's it was part of lightning, which is how I know it from, but it's very common if it's not in core.
Cool.
YouTube video, I think, or like remote video is.
Did anyone think that the difference between media and files is confusing here? Because I did kind of go into Drupal's files library for a moment.
It's a little bit of a holdover from previous versions of Drupal. So I don't know if a beginner needs to really have that be presented to them, because on a new Drupal install, they mostly will be dealing with things as media.
Right, but there's that file tab there, which just seems like it's confusing if it's not contextualized. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. As long as you could say like mostly, you don't need to look here, I guess.
Yeah, something like that would probably be helpful.
Yeah, okay. Ooh, anything else about media? Can we jump into modules? All right.
Whenever you're trying to solve a problem with Drupal, chances are that somebody's already made a module for that. Drupal contrib modules do many things. For example, the admin toolbar module, which saves you time by making the admin toolbar use dropdowns, Path Auto, which automatically generates URL aliases for content, and Web Form, which provides tools for building any type of form to collect any type of data. When you're selecting new modules, make sure to look for a few things. First, is it compatible with your version of Drupal? Second, is it covered by the Security Advisory Policy? Third, when was it last updated? Is it popular? The more popular, the more likely bugs will get fixed. Be aware of issues and check out the issue queue on the right-hand sidebar. Keep in mind that having more modules bloat your Drupal's overhead and may lead to performance issues. To sum up, Drupal contrib modules are a great way to find solutions by engaging in the Drupal open source ecosystem.
It's a great topic. I'm super glad that you kind of addressed the just basic distinction here of core versus contributed, and talking about how contributed modules, there are distinctions between them. Some are popular, some are not. It's sort of hit or miss in a way. When you use the word popular, you're saying check to make sure it's popular. I wasn't sure exactly how you did check to make sure that it was popular. Like, what were you doing in the video that showed that these modules were not popular?
Good point. I was kind of using my mouse to highlight stuff, and there was a link that said like 650,000 sites are using this module.
So that indicates, maybe just spell that out like that. The fact that 650,000 sites are using this module makes it popular.
All right. Yeah, great. I also don't know how that statistic is come up with.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I don't have any help there. I mean, yeah. I don't know. What makes a site popular? How many? I don't know. Well, how many? I don't know.
It's the update module that checks, when you check for updates, Drupal says, oh, here's a site that's running, XYZ module. And so it just adds it to its little, its count.
Mm-hmm. My thoughts for the next video, we're going to be on adding a module to your site. So basically saying that first you need command line access, because there's no way to do it without that anymore. And then you're going to add it to Composer, and depending on what kind of module it is will depend how your Composer thing will work. So you might need to add a repository if it's like a very custom module, just you. And then, because like just clicking maybe I could talk about clicking the enable button in like modules 101. But to get it there so you can click enable can be quite a process.
I think that's a great idea. I think a similar thing for themes, adding themes. One of the things I struggle with is adding themes. So,
anybody have tips on adding themes?
I mean, those can also be added via Composer.
Yeah.
And they will break all your blocks.
Yeah, the thing about themes is a lot more caveats about the fact that this theme availability is a lot sketchier in Drupal than modules. And a lot of themes are like, you pay for a basic version and you have to pay for an upgrade, and they're often hosted elsewhere. And like the world, it feels a lot more like a WordPressy kind of ecosystem, Drupal theme things. So
that's interesting. Just saying that, I think, could be worthwhile.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that there are some themes that are well suited to work with Islandora and other themes that are not. Some information about that, if you're talking about how to change your themes around. And again, that's sort of the extent of my knowledge of how the themes are working. But I was under the impression that there are aspects of how maybe it is the blocks and the views in Islandora that some themes are easier to work with than others, and that would be something that people would want to know. Or I could be wrong, but.
No, it could be a big, like if you just switch a different site and then all your Islandora content is gone, that's a real sort of, right now, kind of missing stair in how a site administrator would be faced with just, doing a day-to-day Drupal site building thing.
All right. Last one that I've got so far is on taxonomies.
This is a low context introduction to taxonomies in Drupal. Let's say you want to have multiple sections of your site, or you want to provide an interface for tagging your content with free text terms. Both of these use cases are accommodated by Drupal's taxonomy. Taxonomy is the practice of classifying things into categories, and in Drupal, taxonomy is a way of linking terms from within vocabularies to your content. Let's take a look at the article content type. It has a tags field where you can type any word or phrase and create a new tag, or in Drupalese, a new taxonomy term. Here you can also use the autocomplete to reuse an existing term. This is a practice of free text tagging, where new terms can be created on the fly. The other way of using taxonomies is as controlled vocabularies, where terms need to be created ahead of time. Let's say our site has a certain number of sections that our articles fall into, where we pick from a fixed list. To configure a vocabulary or add terms, navigate to Manage Structure Taxonomy. We'll use the vocabulary genre, where I've configured to have a few terms. Now we need to add a field to our content to point to these terms. We do this where we manage fields under Manage Structure Content Types. We'll choose Article and manage fields, add a field, and select taxonomy term under the reference category. We'll give it a label and click Save. We want to leave this as single valued. Now we can scroll down to where they list the vocabularies and choose our genre vocabulary for this field. Next, we want to change the widget because we know that autocomplete, the default widget, isn't the best scenario for a short list of values like this. We navigate to Manage Form Display, scroll down to Category, and change the widget from autocomplete to checkboxes or radio buttons. We click Save and go back to edit our article content, and we can see we can assign it to a category. In Islandora, we use taxonomy terms to hold a lot of metadata, but this is a less common practice within Drupal. When we talk about taxonomy in Drupal, taxonomy terms are the terms themselves, and they are organized into vocabularies. Vocabularies are like the content types of taxonomy terms, because each vocabulary defines what fields are available on each term. Again, adding fields to taxonomy terms is a large part of how Islandora works, though it's less common in standard Drupal. Within vocabularies, you can nest terms hierarchically, much like in menus. In this kind of nesting, you can build a simple tree, but it's not possible for a term to fall under two different parents, so this doesn't map very well to real-world taxonomies. When you click on a taxonomy term, you're taken to that term's page, which is a list of all the node content tagged with that term.
All right. Thoughts, comments, feelings?
Did you want to do a separate video on how to use taxonomies, like the different uses for them? Like, yeah.
How's that?
Oh yeah, you'd call me out on that one. I don't have a good example, to be honest.
Well, I can throw something in there, a separate video that would, be highlighted as, next possible video could be on linked open data and the ways that the taxonomies are set up in Islandora to be linked open data resonant.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah.
Another use case that we've talked about for some of these texts, like what you mentioned right at the end there with this, when you click on the taxonomy term and you sort of see all of the nodes or the pieces of content that use it. We've talked about creating a view for that so that you could sort of browse your content by taxonomy term. We have not done that, but that might be an extension that could potentially be of interest to people. So that it wouldn't just be something that you navigated to from the metadata within a particular object. It would be sort of an alternate way of like exploring your site.
Yeah.
Content.
Yeah, that actually sort of, this is just kind of a random thought, just based on what was just said. It could be interesting as time goes on if and you update these videos or you create more, that you actually use live Islandora sites in your videos.
Yeah.
I was trying to have a little bit of a distinction between the Islandora way of doing things and the Drupal way of doing things, where those are different, etc. Like taxonomy tags, taxonomy terms seemed like a really good way of separating your site up into categories. And in fact, some of the Drupal documentation mentions that as a common use case, but there's no out of the box way for Drupal to actually show different blocks based on what taxonomy term is on an article, or change the theme based on what taxonomy term is on the article. And so there I was like, oh, that's a bit of a missing section. I'm not sure what normal Drupal people like use for that, or if they all make their own kind of solutions.
I could think of a few ways to approach it. I don't know how effective they would be, but like, well, yeah, I don't know, or sustainable they would be. So like if you were going to add a view with some type of contextual filter, I'm probably using the wrong type of terminology there. It's possible. You can also write a module wrap around it, but using the existing tools, I feel like there'd be an easy way to do it. I just can't think off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're going into open Q&A time here, so we can continue this discussion, and or anybody, if you have Islandora related questions, it's welcome now.
I found a page for you, Rosie, to answer a question of a previous question, which is the module popular? I just asked in the Drupal Slack channel and got a response back, and it's a full, they have a page that shows you the breakdown of which ones are most popular.
Oh, wow.
So I'm trying to get it to this computer so I can put it in chat. So 1 second and I'll have it.
Thanks.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everybody for all your comments and useful help and feedback. I'm looking forward to incorporating them into making these videos better.